it's very telling because here's the truth is personal transformation. So really owning these tools, not just on a business level, but personal level is key. Because if you are not in alignment with your own values, you have a very unhealthy culture in your company.
Yeah.
And my learning in my own business firsthand was I got stuck about 25 years in, and I was pissed. I was frustrated. I was a hamster on the wheel doing the same thing, getting the same results. Would come in a few minutes late, walk around with my hands on my hips. That was not helping by leading by example. And once I recognized I'm part of the problem, I started showing up an hour early. I started motivating, started having meetings about the vision and where we were going and how we were growing, and really inviting in, not volunteering. That's when our business transformed. Changing your have-tos to choose-tos, meaning every day that we wake up, we have a choice.
Right.
And life is a learning process, right? Where every day we're growing, we're learning. We're either in the process of living or the process of dying. And get a coach. Just like you have a PT, a physical therapist, or you have a personal trainer. What coaching does for the business is help the family members step outside and work more on the business than in the business. And it also allows them to create more personal space for growth for themselves as an individual. I believe one tool that was game changer for me is DISC, in that because my brothers and sisters, we were familiar with our talents and our unique abilities, but you forget your strengths, and you also need to get clear on what your motivational drivers are, because not everyone is the same. So different values, different things are going to inspire and empower each family member. So as far as the tools for head trash, my go-to is DISC, and then through coaching. So I really listen. I'm not certified in NLP, but what I'm listening for, so when clients are using words like "we're trying" or "I don't know," kind of, sort of, probably, I think so, there's no clarity there. First and foremost, getting curious, creating a weekly measurable. So again, weekly, breaking down weekly measurables to more leading than lagging, so we can drive it. But it's really, what is the outcome we're looking for? And then how do we reverse engineer it in action? And what does that look like on a weekly basis? So when we, especially in a family business, I would say is, depending on what seat each person has, but we're not always doing what we say. And by having that lag of action, it's affecting your bottom line.
Controller is passionate, driven, focused on results. They're task first, people second. So they tend to micromanage. They tend to know exactly what they want to do and when to do it and how to do it. My way or the highway, fast energy, get on the train or we're going to run you over kind of stuff. Now, people want to follow them, but a lot of times their energy doesn't land. And so they usually leave people behind. So this leader needs to slow down. Otherwise, again, they can come across as too intense, too aggressive. People don't even know what they're asking because it's so, not so high level, but it's so much further than where people are at because they've already thought through it. They see the results, they see the finish line, and they wanted it done yesterday, even though they just thought of the plan this morning. And so being able to really slow down, learn to translate and communicate effectively the directions and the expectations, and making sure those expectations are realistic. Otherwise, that perfectionist can kick in. And typically what happens is this leader tends to be at the finish line alone, or they're cleaning up everybody's messes because they don't have time to train and retrain and delegate effectively. So they get really annoyed and they think no one's as good as they are, which is not a good place to be when you are running a team. Yeah, I think they go hand in hand.
Okay.
Because at the end of the day, the most well-structured person uses all three. So if you have an organization that has all three, you're hitting every ego out there, which is really, really balanced. It's really fun. So that's not a bad thing. Unfortunately, what happens where the sabotage comes into play is that they talk different languages. Yeah. So the frustration can be real when you're talking big topics, difficult changes, transformation that needs to happen within the organization or within the products or whatever. Big conversations, talking new languages, different languages can really make an executive team butt heads, right? And so I think the biggest thing for a team that is well-rounded, which is what we all want, that diversity that makes us great, we have to learn to talk a new language. And so when we can learn to talk a language that the controller, protector, and complier egos can all hear, now we can realign. So the number one thing is that egos do is one, it forces us onto our own island. And so a lot of times what happens, if you have a controller protector, they will typically be more of the louder, the aggressor, discussion conversers. And so when they're having a conversation, it can sound pretty intense. To those two people, it might not be intense at all. They don't even really care. They're actually kind of enjoying it. They're riffing. Now it can turn to where it's intense and ugly and resentful quickly. One of them is going to shut down in order for the relationship to stay alive. So that's usually a common pattern. I think the biggest thing that I work with lately is teaching managers and leaders how to accept feedback at a level that is so incredibly effective and productive that it's not personal, and now they just change it. You know, when you start to recognize your own ego, it is so much easier to hear feedback from your team members to then be able to recognize that their response to you is not personal. So I just need to get curious with them, right? If they come to you saying, my boss is too demanding, giving me too much work, I'm overwhelmed. Well, an example would be if that is coming from an employee that's a complier protector, all they want to do is please you. And if you continue to put stuff on their plate, because they're going to continue to say, yeah, I can do that. Yeah, I can do that. Yeah, I can do that. And now all of a sudden they're so overwhelmed. That overwhelm might only be because they took a day off and they came back to a million emails and they just need to get ahead of it. But now they fired off because their ego said, you know what, my boss is just overworking me. I can't control this. Where if you give them 4 hours or 6 hours and then you respond, I would bet 9 out of 10 times that employee is no longer stressed out. And they're like, oh no, I was just really stressed out in the moment. I'm good now. And so again, learning how to process what other people's behaviors are and mindsets so that then you can respond to them with an intentional, action or belief or communication that will actually keep the relationship more productive and make it more meaningful. So where everybody feels connected and engaged, builds that trust. So team members actually feel like you care about them. Anytime you're learning something new or listening to one of these, leadership books out there or business books, whatever you're listening to, parenting book, take what you can process from it. Don't try to, do it because someone said it's great. Take what it is, put it in the background. Like your brain is processing and what it needs to take in. Your subconscious brain in the moment is judging what it's saying if you don't like it. If your ego doesn't like the tone of voice or it doesn't like something it said or it doesn't feel like it's talking to you, or maybe it's talking to you completely, ego's like, nope, that's not me, that's someone else. And it's gonna shut it down, right? And I think when we can recognize that about the ego and then just stay curious that, okay, I'm not going to give it my full attention, but I'm going to put it in the background. So subconsciously, my brain is going to hear this and it will process it. I think that's the beauty of learning, education, awareness. When we start to process new information, stay curious without judgment, we can actually take bits and pieces of anybody who's delivering anything and find some form of value out of it.
I'm similar to my father in the visionary. I love to innovate
And that's what I spent the last 4 years working on with the new edition of my father's book. So my father came out with all these concepts before the internet. He was so before his time. And he was doing content marketing from radio ads.
Right.
Nobody was doing that at that time.
Right.
So I had to reinvent everything that he did. It's all the same strategies. Those are timeless. It's just the tactical implementation of them. So what he did on radio, I've proven in Facebook ads. And what he did on fax machines, I'm doing in Instagram DMs. What he did on voicemails, I'm doing on ringless voicemails. So all of the concepts are still the same. It's just the tactical shift that needed to be implemented. So I'm definitely more of the visionary, and I surround myself by integrators so that we can get the visions into paper and into dollar sign. My father taught Dream 100 because of all of the mess out there today. I even tried to get people, what is your dream one? What is one relationship that would change the course and direction of your world? And for me, last year, the most influential one I had was I spoke at HubSpot. That one speaking engagement of the 600 that were in the room, 500 of them opted into what I was offering for free. Right then and there, I got 100 appointments made, and I've made hundreds of thousands of dollars just in the first year. I'm sure over the next 3 years, I'll probably generate a couple $1 million from that one engagement, relationship.
So good.
So who is the leveraged one that can get you the many? That would be your dream. And it could be, I call it a target 12. It could just be a target 12. It could be a target 3. I have 3 that are most important to me at the moment. It depends on the different verticals, but yeah, I do have a dream 3 list. My father's no longer here, so we still teach the same methodology. It's just the intention is a little bit different. He did everything in pressure. I'm not going to do it in pressure. I had to change our methodology from double your sales. I'm sorry, if doubling your sales is going to kill you, if it's going to make you sick, if you're not going to be able to have time with your family because of that, I'm not interested in it. Our mission is to simplify growth so that it's easy and effortless for leaders so that they can have longevity in their lives and experience an abundance that is holistic. And so everything I do is, how do we simplify? How do we make this easy, as easy as possible? My culture has changed dramatically in the people that I surround myself with. I'm very collaborative. I recognize that I am the youngest one in the room majority of the time. I'm surrounded by baby boomers in my clientele, who I speak to when I'm on stages, in my staff, and that's okay. And I don't have to have all the answers, because I don't. My father innovated his way through it. He had all the reps. I don't have those reps. So I have to rely on my team, and I have to be inquisitive, and I have to ask the questions. But at the end of the day, it's still my intuition to make those decisions to move forwards. So my culture is different, but we still teach the same, and we still honor him.
List the 6 most important things that you need to do tomorrow when you come into work, and then prioritize those 6 things, and then work single-handedly at each task. In other words, without multitasking. Focus on one task at a time until it's done before you move on to the next. And then continue to repeat that habit day in and day out. And so when Ivy Lee gave this advice to Charles Schwab, initially said, what should I pay you? And he said, nothing, pay me what you think it was worth. And in 3 months later, a check for $25,000 was sent to Ivy Lee. Now, this is back in 1918. And the value of that check today would be $575,000 in 2023 dollars. So take what's the price tag of having your people and yourself prioritize your most important activities and focus on them first. And here's why it's so effective is 1, it's simple enough to actually work. It's just basically organizing all of the things that you have to do, removing the complexity and nuances, and focusing on the most important stuff. I always tell my clients that a best practice is to plan 2/3 of your day and allow for 1/3 to just take over from, what shows up. So another reason why this productivity method works is it forces you to make tough decisions. There's nothing magical about the 6 tasks. It could be 4, it could be 5, it could be 3. But what's magical is about imposing limits upon yourself, imposing a time frame, a constraint to get it done. I know when I wrote my book, I tried to write each chapter in 55 minutes or 50 minutes, I believe it was. And I set myself like an egg timer, and I had a clear outline. And then I just wrote as fast as I could in as organized a fashion. I could have spoken it, but I was given a time constraint. And by doing that, it forced me to write my chapters faster. Another colleague of mine put forth recently that this is the 4 simplest steps. It's these same 4 boxes, but he labeled them as no, not me, later, and now. And he said these are the basic time management principles. And no is say no to what does not directly support your business. And say not me to that stuff that relates to your business, but someone else could do. And say later or say not now to those things that can be done by you, but are not urgent. And then say now to those that are urgent and must be done by you. So the concept in all of these is to try to prioritize what your most important and most productive habits are. And, I'm talking about not just habits, but gifts. What are your most productive gifts and where should you be spending your time?